Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land. I am your host and sports director, Brian Nelson, and with me I have...
The one and only, recording in front of his apartment wall, which, as our arts and life director pointed out yesterday, looks like bathroom tile. Your assistant sports editor, Andy Anders.
I am your assistant sports director, Khalid.
And I'm your sports editor, Griffin. Brian, what are we talking about today on Zoom?
We got a lot to talk about today. First of all, the fact that we are not recording in our normal studio. We are not in the podcast room. We are not even all in Columbus. We are communicating virtually over Zoom because the world is dying.
Quarantine, baby.
Quarantine because of COVID-19. The coronavirus has thrown the world of sports into disarray. Last time we were talking to all of you, the Big Ten tournament was about to happen, and we were all set to go to Indy, and then we did make it to Indy, but the tournament did not happen. It was quite the experience. Andy, Griffin, and I had a lot of fun at a Texas Roadhouse. I'm sure Andy has something to say about that.
Yeah. So we were on the road to Indianapolis, and before we left, obviously, it had already been announced that a lot of conference tournaments, including the Big Ten, weren't going to have fans there. I was excited to cover a junior high game. That was also a Big Ten tournament game because it was just going to be media, families, players in the arena. Me and Griffin thought Brian thought that would be a really cool experience to have, honestly.
Yeah.
We had agreed that once we got across the Ohio-Indiana border, we were going to stop and eat dinner. As we're driving, more news is happening, right? Rudy Gobert tests positive. The NBA is suspending play. All these shoes are dropping while we're on the road. And we're wondering, what's going to happen next Ohio State-wise. Is there going to be some news? We're kind of anticipating maybe the spring game gets canceled, et cetera. We pull over in a parking lot in Richmond, Indiana. Not Virginia, Richmond, Indiana. And as we're sitting there figuring out where we're going to eat, it breaks that the spring game's been canceled. So first we decide we're going to eat at Texas Roadhouse. Then since Griffin had done the last brief, it was my turn to do a brief. So I posted the article about this spring game getting canceled with my laptop on the table at Texas Roadhouse. Hot spotting, pile of peanut shells next to me, watching the world burn on Twitter. Quite the experience. Quite surreal.
Don't forget Tom Hanks got the coronavirus too. That
Right.
also happened.
If
The
you
most important thing.
If you gentlemen will recall, actually, it was stuff had been breaking all before the spring game announcement, but then it was once we got into the Texas Roadhouse, the spring game cancellation, that news happened. But then after that is when we found out that the NBA season got suspended. Rudy Gobert tested positive. Tom Hanks had coronavirus. And it was just honestly a very surreal experience. It was kind of like an out-of-body experience. And the fact that we were at Texas Roadhouse for some reason made it all stranger.
It was great food too. That was one of the best meals at Texas Roadhouse I've ever had. But
There wasn't a lot of people there. It was just so eerie.
Yeah. There was
Because-
like a premonition almost of everything that was to come. Now there's in Ohio there's the stay-at-home order and everything. So
Oh, how little we knew then.
yeah, really.
I just thought it was funny because at that time, a lot of people still kind of thought things weren't that serious with the coronavirus and everything. And then kind of the world of sports was kind of the first huge dominoes to fall in America with everything, with governments, cancellations and stuff like that, and restrictions and whatnot, because it was all the sports tournaments and leagues. That was the first things to get shut down in America in regards to the coronavirus, really, because it was only after that restaurants started to close down, and then people were being told not to leave, and it was only after we got back from Indianapolis that they decided to postpone school a little bit and make everything online.
Yeah, I think that happened just as we were getting back into Columbus when we got those emails. That first of all we were having an extra week of spring break, and then everything was going to be moving to online classes. which, as someone who had no online classes this summer, it's a bit of a shift. Not necessarily a bad one, but just a shift. And it was just such a strange experience because we went and walked around Indianapolis after the Big Ten tournament got canceled, and the city just felt very empty. Like, not a lot of people were really walking around. There wasn't a lot of traffic. It almost felt like a ghost town.
Things just happened way too fast, like, and it came all at one time to where it's like people just didn't know like what was gonna come next. It was just so much at once.
You were in Morocco the entire time. That was wild too.
Yeah, tell us about like your experience, just kind of like hearing everything.
I was just constantly checking my phone, constantly getting email updates, checking their group chats. Like, it was just funny seeing how you guys transitioned from, oh, like, I'm over here, where are you? Or, guys, I'm in the car. And then 2 minutes later, it's like, guys, did you hear the news? Yes, I heard. Yes, I'm on. Like, so funny how you guys are just like, 1 minute you guys are getting ready. I think it was like Griffin in the mall were like getting ready to head over to the arena. And then they're like, never mind, the game's canceled. It was just so funny.
Well, see, going off of that, actually, Andy and I were a little bit lazy in the morning. We were just kind of relaxing and enjoying our morning because we didn't have anything until Ohio State wasn't playing until 6:30. So, but just as I was about to go and get a shower and like clean up and finally get ready to leave, I looked at my phone and then there's an email. The Big Ten tournament's been canceled. Andy's asleep. So I'm just like, oh, I have to wake him up immediately because I don't know if Griffin's in the car, doesn't have his computer out. That was like.
I credit Brian because you were very helpful through that entire super fast news cycle because many times you noticed different things happening before we did and sent us like tweets or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was extremely helpful.
My obsession with Twitter finally paying off.
Teamwork, baby.
Teamwork.
Yeah.
But even after the hotel, I feel like the craziest time, honestly, even crazier than the Texas Roadhouse, was right after we got all that news in the hotel. We decided it was Griffin's call. Griffin is the reason we were there for all the craziness because he's the one who suggested that we go see the empty arena anyway. We were just going to leave Indy. But then I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's get our credentials, which they didn't have. But I thought that would have been a cool souvenir to have a credential to an event that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But Griffin, you want to explain our times after the hotel there?
Yeah, well, we went, and honestly, the initial motivation was just like, well, we got to go get a picture in front of the arena.
Yeah.
That ended up actually being a very good idea because we may not get a picture with each other in person for the rest of this school year, like working together. So that was kind of a good idea. But then once we got on the scene, it was kind of like, oh, this will be a good chance to get some pictures of like, the police and like the different signs they have and whatnot. So we got some of that stuff to put on social media for Lantern Sports and whatnot. But then we were hungry, so we went to go get a bite to eat, and we just so happened to stick around long enough that we got an email from Dan Wallenberg, the basketball SID, that said that Chris Holtmann and a couple players were going to have an impromptu media availability at the media hotel there, which is funny because like initially we were just like, oh, I guess we're just going to leave Indianapolis. But we stuck around just long enough that ended up being a very valuable, thing for us. So we had to get back to the car, which was like 5 minutes away. Then Andy's driving, and we went the wrong way at first. Then we had to double back. And then we had no idea where we were going to park at. So I was like, Andy, you just got to let us jump out. We jumped out. I had no idea if Andy was going to be able to find anywhere to park. And then we had to figure out where the thing even was. It was on like the second floor. It was a huge hotel.
That employee who like took us to where it was happening was very helpful. I do want to compliment him. We would have not made it without him.
But
shout out to the random employee at the JW Marriott in Indianapolis.
he was super helpful. He totally understood.
Yeah.
And
the funniest anecdote though about when we had that availability with Holtmann and the players was that all the media, it was a media scrum around Holtmann. And then everyone just kind of dispersed after that, and then like 2 seconds later,
Oh,
news that Duke and Kansas had withdrawn from the tournament broke. And so then suddenly all of the remaining media members just immediately swarmed back over to Holman to get his reaction to that news. Like 2 seconds, like, so everything he had just said like 30 seconds earlier was already old news by this point because something else, some other shoe had dropped.
I actually had like you guys like already were like sitting down to write your like briefs and everything like about like what Holtman and like Andre Wesson and T.J. Walker had said, and I had like yell at you guys to get over here because they're about to start that interview again.
Yeah,
it was insane. And then after that, and it's like we just sat down like on the floor and just started writing and editing like the video and articles we had, and then finally we got to leave Indianapolis.
right.
Video cut out.
Andy for a moment there, but I'm sure we'll get him back.
Yeah, the internet connection with Zoom with where we all are, it's a little spotty, so I think we're all going to cut out at some moment or another. Just stick with us, everyone.
Yeah.
We're trying to get you the best content possible.
So
Best content possible.
Right. So that was the recap of Indy, right? And then had more basketball news start to come out slowly. What was it like? I think was the next piece of news that came out was the cancellation of March Madness, right?
Yeah, that was like the following day or two. When
No,
that was
that was the same. That was just a couple hours later. If I or was it the next day?
No,
I think it was the next.
You're right. So actually, yeah. So actually, what had happened, we were after we got done with that Holtman presser, that media scrum. I had forgotten my computer charger. Internet connection unstable. Great.
We can hear you.
I had forgotten my computer charger at our hotel, and so we go back to the hotel to get it. Still there, luckily. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. Probably have to order a new one. But you know what's wild? This was only 2 weeks ago. It doesn't feel like 2 weeks. It feels like
It doesn't. It feels like an eternity
A lot
ago.
happened those past weeks.
Like so much has happened.
But we go back. So much has happened. We go back and get to the computer charger. As we're getting in the car, that's when the No March Madness All Winter and Spring Championships canceled.
Yeah, that's when that happened.
And so me and Griffin just said to Brian, like, hey, this news is going to keep happening. You drive so that we can be available to write briefs if things break. And that's what happened. I think, Griffin, we wrote 3-4 stories total in the car, 1 or 2 each. Just in my car hot spotting on the way back to Indy. Once we were done, we were pretty sure all the news had gone through with Ohio State or the Big Ten canceling. The next shoe to drop was the Big Ten canceled all athletic competition, period. That was after the all championship and future play for winter and canceled by the NCAA. Once that was done, Griffin, we'd bought some alcohol the night before. Griffin pulled out a 40 and started drinking it in my backseat. It was pretty wild.
It was hilarious.
It's off the rails, boys.
Yeah, we make a time coming back from Indy though.
Not sure if you wanted to share that, Griffin, but that was.
Yeah.
It's all part of a wild news breaking.
That was honestly the vibe at the time.
Yeah.
And then, so after March Madness was canceled, my first train of thought was, okay, well, now what with Andre Wesson and seniors? Because that's kind of a big deal. Like your entire, like nobody could have even like dreamed that, oh, Andre just played his final game, and it hasn't even been the Big Ten tournament yet, let alone March Madness completely canceled. We kind of expected that to be canceled once. It was Duke and Kansas were the first 2 teams to drop out, and Kansas was the number 1 team overall. So the best team in the country is not even going to be participating in March Madness. We kind of expected that either more teams are going to drop out or the entire tournament was going to be canceled. But so yeah, now we're all wondering what's going to go on with Andre Wesson because he's a senior and he just played the past couple of months of basketball all pretty much for nothing. So Griffin was saying that they're still discussing on if basketball players or winter sports are going to have an extra year of eligibility.
Yeah, on Monday, the NCAA Division One Council Committee or something like that is voting on spring and winter sport eligibility relief. And from what I understand, the spring sports, from what I understand, everyone's going to get an extra year of eligibility that's a spring sport athlete, I believe. But winter sports, I think, is going to be a little bit dicier. So I wouldn't bank on Andre Wesson getting extra eligibility because, they did finish the regular season at the end of the day for basketball. But also something that the committee put out was that they're in favor of letting schools individually figure stuff out and giving them the autonomy to have their own policies on that. That's at least what they put a statement out saying that's what they favor. So who knows, maybe
scholarships, right?
Huh?
But then it gets kind of tricky with scholarships because now that the schools have to pick and choose if we're bringing a guy back, now you might be bringing one less freshman on.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a complicated issue, but we'll start getting some answers on Monday on all that stuff.
I mean, at least in the case for like Andre, you could just say, well, he never really took a redshirt year, so just have him this can be his redshirt year. This can be his fifth year. He just gets to play though. I don't know.
To your point, Khalid, though, about scholarships. So a lot of people don't realize that outside of football and basketball, many players are on either partial or no scholarship at all for a lot of other varsity sports at colleges. Like I think baseball only gets 9 total scholarships, and they can split them up do partials on things like that. So really, it's only an issue as much for basketball. And maybe, I don't know if there's other sports that, I don't know the full ins and outs of this many scholarships, and then it would affect their recruiting. But for a baseball or for a rowing or even a tennis or some of those other smaller sports, and baseball is still pretty big. For some of those other smaller sports, it would have less of an impact when you are already under a very low number of scholarships.
Yeah, and that also impacts other pretty big Ohio State sports, winter sports. Men's and women's hockey were both playing very well. Wrestling was one of the best programs in the country, and their seasons got cut short. The women's hockey team won the Big Ten, won their conference for their first time in their career. So a lot got W. Yeah, I keep forgetting the name. So
yeah,
a lot happened.
Yeah, and then on top of all this going on, more Ohio State basketball news continue to drop. First, I believe, was the long-awaited commitment of Seth Towns, who was the former the Columbus product and Northland High School graduate who went to Harvard and was the number 1 transfer prospect in the 2020 class. And he committed to Ohio State over Duke a couple of days ago on ESPN SportsCenter. And that's going to be a huge addition, especially if they do end up losing Andre Wesson. Do you guys want to go ahead and talk about that before we talk about the guys who left?
Yeah, so Seth Towns, he hasn't played in 2 seasons because he's had a bunch of surgeries and ongoing knee issue. But the last time he did play, he was the Ivy League Player of the Year. He averaged 16 points a game, which I think it led the conference. And I was looking at his numbers that season too. And the second half of the year, up until he got injured, he was averaging 19 a game and shooting 45% from 3. And that wasn't shooting 1 3 a game. He shot 5 threes a game, shooting 45%. So he could come. I mean, barring a major setback from all the injury, which is very possible. He could be rusty. It could take him some time to work back into that form. But I mean, he could easily come in and be the best 3-point shooter on the team based on his numbers and the volume that he shot and how good of a percentage he shot. It was actually before that though. Right before the Seth Towns news was the DJ Carton news. So DJ Carton, the number 34 overall prospect in the 2019 class, he was kind of the centerpiece of this one of the more elite recruiting classes in the country that Ohio State had in 2019. And he was really the centerpiece of that. Super athletic point guard. He was always throwing down left-handed dunks out of nowhere in transition and stuff. He was really the piece that
alley-oop passes as well.
Yep. He was the piece that everyone was like super excited for as being like the superstar of the team in the next few years, or even probably starting next year. He probably would, and he left the team for mental health issues 20 games into the season, but I expected him to return to the team. I mean, maybe
a lot of people did, especially
Yeah.
the message he put out and the message his mother put out.
Yeah.
He was going to come back stronger for the Buckeyes. That's what's kind of like caught a lot of people off guard, because everyone was like, okay, the way Chris Holtmann is sounding, the way he's sounding, the way his teammates are sounding, everything sounds like he's just away for now dealing with his personal issues, and then he's going to come back to the team. And then out of nowhere, he just left.
And I'm not pretending to know anything about the situation, behind the scenes necessarily. But at the same time, maybe he said he wanted a fresh start, and maybe it's like, man, it was kind of a weird year. Like I left the team and the school, mid-year. Things were going on behind the scenes. Maybe he was just like, it was just kind of a weird, messy situation. Let me just have a fresh start somewhere. I can just, start anew and not have that baggage, and not have people asking me, about that so much.
Not only that, he did leave Columbus in general for quite a lot of time, right? And during that time, we don't know what was going on. We don't know where his mental health issues stemmed from. So it could be that either he's missing family or he is having family problems and things like that going on. And he is from Iowa, and Iowa does have a talented basketball team. So who knows? Maybe he was just thinking to himself, maybe it's just best for me to be closer to home. So can't really judge the kid for just leaving abruptly. There could have been like behind the scenes issues or things in his mind that helped make the decision for him.
Right. And so that was a, not a good sign for the team moving forward. But then with the Seth Towns news, and it was kind of funny to see how big the Seth Towns announcement kind of seemed, because there's so few things happening right now in the world of sports. And suddenly it was like, oh, Seth Towns is going to be on ESPN making this announcement. It felt kind of like something that seemed bigger than what it actually was, maybe, considering Seth Towns isn't necessarily a household name in America,
Mm-hmm.
But he did make that decision. And the best news for Ohio State is that he has 2 years of eligibility, despite having already graduated from Harvard, and he'll be eligible right away. So we won't have to wait out a year like C.J. Walker and Justice Suing have had to do. He'll be able to come in right away. And depending on, we just don't know how much his knee injury has set him back. But, I mean, if he comes in and plays at the caliber that he was at before his injury, I mean, who knows? He could be the leading scorer on the team,
It's funny. I saw a tweet on Twitter that was talking about how Ohio State coaches have had this transfer portal thing all figured out, because Ryan Day's over there with Justin Fields, the number 1 overall prospect, and Jonah Jackson. And now you have Chris Holtmann with the number 1 transfer prospect and Seth Towns. So I was like, I think Ohio State's doing pretty well in the transfer portal.
Well, that's a terrific segue, Khalid, because Seth Towns wasn't the only transfer portal acquisition for Ohio. Trey Sermon, out of Oklahoma, who rushed for 950 yards as a sophomore, had a dip this year as Kenny Brooks usurped him in that offense. Also, Jalen Hurts was their main rushing threat in the end, yardage-wise. But you get a guy who's proven that he's a talent, I think. When you watched Sermon in the past 2 years ago, I thought he was – I didn't see him getting displaced by Brooks this season. I thought he was a pretty talented back.
He was a 4-star.
Very good.
Yeah, either way, you've got now someone with experience, over 2,000 yards rushing in his 3-year career at Oklahoma, to a room that doesn't have any. In the spring, they were down to 1 scholarship running back. It was Steele Chambers.
Even before just the whole spring game only having 1 running back healthy, this has been a conversation that we've all been discussing for the entire year behind J.K. Dobbins, who is there. And for some time we thought, Master T And then towards the end of the season, I started getting on Master T because I was like, I don't know if that's the answer. He's not producing during big games. And then now JK leaves, and now Ohio State didn't bring in any running backs in this year's class. So now everyone's like, okay, well, that's clearly
they
They had one, but it was a 3-star. He's a
3-star
project.
out of Cincy.
right.
Yeah.
And then, but everyone knew he's not like in contention to start. So we were thinking, all right, now
No.
Ohio State has Master Teague, Still Chambers, and Marcus Crowley. Who's going to be the guy? And everyone's like, all right, Master Teague, and then he goes down. And right before he went down, Ryan Day was saying that Ohio State is one injury away at the running back position from a crisis. The next day, that injury happened, and now they're in a crisis. So Trey Sermon coming in from Oklahoma is kind of a huge sigh of relief because now they have a guy who has a lot of experience. And honestly, that's exactly what this team needs at the moment. They have Justin Fields for probably one more year. And with this talented roster, especially on the offensive side of the ball, they have a lot of depth at offensive line.
They're loaded on offense now.
Loaded offensive line, wide receivers loaded.
Superstar at quarterback. And then it's kind of like running back was kind of the question mark. But now you put in Trey Sermon back there, that offense is literally complete as long as he can stay healthy.
I don't know. And again, he hasn't had an 1,000-yard season yet, so you wonder why was Kennedy Brooks starting over him last year at Oklahoma. Not to say Kennedy Brooks was really talented, but it does beg the question, right? Still, it's definitely a huge land for them. The thing about Teague, obviously, is that he really struggled when he had to come in for JK against Clemson. He's now had 2 different major injuries in his career. His last summer, if you remember working through, he didn't get back until the very end of fall camp last year. He had a similar injury. I forget what it was last year. An Achilles.
Yeah.
I believe it was undisclosed.
We were talking about Demario McCall.
It was undisclosed.
Yeah.
I remember it being like lower body.
Yeah, Master Teague wasn't even a thought to be the backup because he wasn't playing during all of spring.
That's why we were so surprised when it was him over McCall or even Crowley.
I wasn't.
I know, but just the overall sense is because you can't speak for a guy who's not on the field and being productive. And then he comes back and just ran away with it.
He looked strong until the very end of the season. The Clemson game for certain. Didn't look great in the Big Ten title game either. Didn't play a lot. Didn't get a lot of meaningful reps, right? He got a lot of garbage time reps, enough to be third team All Big Ten. But
he did do pretty well against Wisconsin and Columbus. I do want to give him credit for that.
Right. Well, like I said earlier in the year,
Yeah.
They seems to still have a lot of confidence in Master. We talked to him on a conference call Wednesday with a lot of other reporters, and he was saying that he's a very mature guy. He's going to kill rehab. He's going to be they expect him to be back at full strength and making an impact. But
that's never been
you
a
just
question.
wonder if his style of running fits the offense. He feels more like a Jim Tressel running back than a Ryan Day or Urban Meyer.
That is true.
The thing
to me.
Master Teague, though, is like his mental or his off the field has never been a question. He's always been an A1 top-notch kind of guy. But he's always been a great compliment back. But our question was, can he be the back, like in the next J.K. Dobbins? And that we don't.
In a spread, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think there is a thing. Ohio you go first.
Oh, sorry, yeah. So look at the prototypical running back Ohio State's had since Urban took over, really. Carlos Hyde was people think of him as a power runner, but he was very shifty. And then since then, you've had mostly 5'10", 215 guys. JK, Zeke, even Mike Weber.
Mm-hmm.
So these types of running backs are prototypical spread guys because when you're running a zone scheme, running-wise, you need a guy who can approach the line, pick and find his own hole, make that cut, and then burst, right? Teague is a much more downhill runner. He'd be good, I think, more as a tailback and a power I, where you're handing him the ball and he's going to the 3-hole. He doesn't have to make his own way with offensive linemen zone blocking and just occupying guys instead of moving them off the ball.
going off of that, though, Andy, we did see Ryan Day in his first year as head coach. We did see him use a lot of under center offense and play action with Justin Fields, which kind of surprised us at the beginning of the season. And
Right. He mixed in some power schemes, but in the end, the bread and butter was zone.
Well, yes,
and
it was.
JK's biggest runs.
Yeah.
But he did have a couple of big power runs.
But the thing is, Ryan Day tailored the offense to base it around Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins. And I think someone like Day, if Teague is going to be more of a power runner, I think Day can tailor the offense to complement him in that way, while still giving Justin Fields the room he needs to utilize this air raid plethora of receivers he has. You know,
that is a great point because, I mean, you look at just the transition between the offense he coordinated with Haskins and then this year, two night and day offenses geared around the strengths of the players. And that's what makes him such a great offensive mind. You know,
so regardless of who the running back ends up being, whether it is Teague, whether it's Sermon, or if it's a running back by committee, I still think that Day will be able to get the most out of them as he can just by the schemes he'll use for the offense. Because the offensive line is not an issue. The offensive line will be able to do power running. They'll be able to do zone running. That's not an issue. It's just a matter of whether the running backs are capable. So,
and I'm really excited for the O-line next year.
Yeah, I know you are.
I thought in that conference call with Day yesterday that a lot of the stuff he said about I guess that was 2 days ago now. A lot of the stuff he said about how they have to run things right now was actually really interesting. He said most of the guys are back home, but some guys are sticking around locally for different reasons. And Master Teague was an example of that. He said that because he's rehabbing, that he's still on campus locally to get better treatment with rehab, I suppose. And it was also interesting. He said that they are able to ship like food out to players and stuff like that. Because for a lot of people, you know, right now it's like, damn, like I have to run to the grocery store, but a lot of stuff is out. So like, what am I supposed to eat? And especially for like such an elite D1, you know, athlete, it's like you can't just eat like the normal stuff a lot of the time. So they're literally sending out frozen food to these guys. They also said that they're able to give them money for food that they would typically be giving them as stipends on their Buck ID. So now they're just able to give them that money to use on food and stuff now regularly. And then in terms of workouts as well, he said, you know, some guys have like weights or whatever, but some guys who, you know, he kept using like living in New York City as an example. So that's an example where like they might be living somewhere they don't have a lot of space because, you know, it's such a crowded place to live. And they don't have access to like a space where they can work out and whatnot. And he said that Mickey Marotti and the position coaches are working on like individualized workout plans for guys, and they're also sending them like resistance bands and like and body weight training stuff. And I just thought that was all interesting. And you do kind of wonder like which guys are approaching every day like they're still in spring practice, like waking up and just doing whatever they can, like whether it be inside their room or whatever, inside their house.
It's funny you say that because Justin Fields was literally on Instagram Live yesterday working out in the gym with like one other person. So that's one guy, you know, who's still getting in the work at least.
Yeah.
He's in Georgia, so I imagine their restrictions aren't as heavy as other states.
But then there are like some players who just won't have access to the equipment that they would have at the Woody, or even just like the space they need, say if like you're a kicker or you're a receiver, or cornerback.
You gotta get the home workouts in, boy. You gotta start on couches.
Going off that though, Griffin. Shoot, I had a point. I think this is honestly such a unique experience for college football season. Assuming everything happens, the season happens, you know, as scheduled. The way teams navigate this time could play a huge factor into the overall landscape of, you know, who the top teams are this year. Because if players go home and you don't have the discipline to keep everyone on schedule, because it's not just about the starters staying in shape, you need the practice squad players to stay in shape. You need
Mhm.
the backups to stay in shape for depth. Everyone has to stay in shape during this time. And the teams with the best discipline and the best plan to handle this quarantined time where you're missing your spring practices and you're missing your team workouts, honestly, are going to have a huge leg up over the teams with a less structured regimen for these things. And I think it's where the organizational elements of Ohio State will help it excel too, because since at least Urban's been here, I can't speak for Tressel's personnel staff because I'm not as familiar, but just Pantoni, Marotti, the ATs, the rest of the strength and conditioning staff under Marotti. He's always been top-notch, one of the best in the country, and I think that has helped them a ton in this window, or will help them a ton in this window, where they can't see each other and work out and practice.
And
You
another,
would help them separate them from other teams across the country that their players may not stay as disciplined.
I mean, you just go back, like, say, 10 years and look at how the Big Ten was. Ohio State was one of the top teams in the Big Ten, but I would not necessarily say they were the premier Big Ten team that was guaranteed to win it every single year. Now it's almost like Ohio State's the team to beat. If you want to win the Big Ten, you have to beat Ohio State, and you probably have to beat Ohio State twice if you play them in the regular season because they're going to be there in the Big Ten championship. So.
Yeah.
one thing you have to look forward to also is we don't know how long this whole coronavirus thing is going to be lasting, right? It could go on into the summer, right? And
quarantine is going to be at least another month and a half, 2 months, I'd say.
So if the next time these teams see each other and get together for an organized workout is training camp, you can see a lot of injuries very quickly. So that's going to be a scary time because a lot of guys are going to be out of, not conditioned, and you didn't have that time to work out. So guys are going to be trying to go extra hard. Coaches might be pushing players extra hard. And that's usually when we see a lot of the injuries happen. So that's something to look forward to as well.
Yeah, and if that's the case, you might see the season delayed a little bit.
You can stay in shape enough not to get injured running down your street. It's just, are the players going to do it?
Exactly.
So that's it. That's what it comes down to, I think. And you'll see a mix across the country. I know there's not a lot of parity in college football as is, but there's going to be even less because the top-tier teams are going to thrive through this and the lower ones aren't. And you might see new programs rise that have better structure but haven't always had the talent.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, a lot's going to happen.
The other thing, though – sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No, you can go ahead. I didn't really have anything to say. I was just going to try and transition to talk. I was just going to transition to talking about what Ohio State's done on the recruiting field. But
that's exactly what I was going to do.
All right, Andy, we'll take it away.
So, on the structure, I mentioned Pantoni in the same sentence as Marotti. For those who don't know, Mickey Marotti is the head strength and conditioning coach at Ohio State. Griffin mentioned him earlier. He's sending a lot of players individualized workouts. Pantoni's the recruiting coordinator. And Day has, in our conference call yesterday, mentioned him and how great a job he's done. Ohio State, through quarantine, landed 4 commitments in 3 days from March 15th through 17th. I wrote a story about this, but they got 3 4-stars and 3-star, 2 of them top 100 prospects for what is quickly becoming one of the best classes in Ohio State history. This class of 40.
And we thought that was this year.
Ranked number 1 in the country. They have 268 points in 24/7's composite rankings. The next best team is Clemson with 220. So they're killing it right now, even during the quarantine on the recruiting trail. One player I'm really excited about personally, and it might not be the last running back they land in this class because 5-star Travion Henderson is announcing soon. Mm-hmm. He's got Ohio State high up on his list. 4-star running back Evan Pryor, I think is 85th overall in the country, ran a 4.31. Is a sophomore in high school.
Yep.
At the opening regionals.
That's actually ridiculous.
4.31 is a sophomore in high school. NFL Combine this year, so that's pretty ridiculous. You got to. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, and
I looked at that number and I was like, holy.
exactly.
Yeah.
But they got him. They also got J.K. Johnson, a big cornerback.
They had 3 cornerbacks commit, right?
I think one of them was a safety, right?
Yep.
Okay, so 3.
They had 2.
They had three. They had 3
safety.
defensive backs, 2 cornerbacks, and 1 safety.
Right. And then take this in, though. 247 Sports came out with a composite ranking for coaches recruiting, and Ohio State has 5 of the top 10 and 3 in the top 4.
Wow.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Do you want to list who they are?
Uh-huh.
It's Brian Hartline, I believe, is number 1, and then I believe Kerry Combs is either number 2 or 3, and then you had Tony Alford in the top 5, and then you had Larry Johnson, and the last one. Who was the last one? Oh, Al Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
those are the 5 coaches in the top 10.
Which is pretty ridiculous. I think Alfred was 4th, if I remember correctly.
I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, guys.
Okay. All right. So, continuing off of that, we're talking about how good Ohio State's recruiting class is looking up. But the main thing is that, the 2 main positions of worry heading into the season for Ohio State are the running back. Obviously, that's alleviated a little bit with Trey Sermon's transfer. And then also the defensive back, specifically cornerback. It's considering what happened with, we had someone like Jeff Okudah going to the NFL draft. And then the stuff that happened with Amir Reed and Jocelyn Lynch kind of lessened the depth at the position. So getting these commits really helps. So if someone wants to take away and talk about that a little bit, it's kind of – Khalid's back. Oh, perfect segue. So, yeah. Someone –
What were we talking about?
I was just kind of going on a tangent, kind of talking about how getting these cornerback commits and running back commits really helps add depth to the 2 positions that Ohio State kind of needs right now. They're great on offensive line and defensive line. Their linebackers are really solid. And receivers.
I'll say this. The whole thing about recruiting, when Ryan Day took over, one of the biggest question marks was, can he recruit at the same level as Urban Meyer? Because we all know Urban Meyer was phenomenal with recruiting because he had that name to him, right? And players wanted to come play for Urban Meyer because he's one of the top coaches in the country. Well, after one season where he got Justin Fields, the number 1 prospect and the best player to ever come to Ohio State, not commit to Ohio State, but just play at Ohio State, we were like, okay, you have something. And then the recruiting class he's putting together for 2021 just almost goes, okay, wow, he is just as good or maybe even better. Who knows? It's obviously going to take time to really see if he's competitive with Urban Meyer, but he's putting together a phenomenal.
His 2020 class was great too.
Yeah, look at who he brought in.
I will say the 2020 class I thought was going to be by far one of the best recruiting classes since 2017, where they had J.K., Jeff Okudah, and Chase Young, and then now we're looking at 2021. Wait a minute, that's even better than 2020's class. So he just keeps getting better and keeps impressing.
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
To build on itself too, because I swear every day you see some new graphic or number. I even saw one today about first round draft picks in the last however many years, and Ohio State just 1 or 2 on just every list of
Just go to CBS Fox on Instagram and just scroll through their page. They put up a different little graphic like Griffin's talking about. In Ohio State's either top 3 in every single category.
Yeah,
I mean they're gonna continue that this year. Ohio State's having at least 2 first-round picks in this coming NFL draft, if not 3, depending on where Dobbins goes.
Not only that, there's one graphic that they're talking about how USC has the most overall draft picks or something, and everyone's like, all right, well, just wait for Ohio State because they're the only relevant team in this top 5, and they're going to continue to pass them.
Right.
Yeah. Do we want to touch on the NFL draft a little bit? Just kind of talk about how that's been affected by the quarantine, especially with what might happen to Chase Young and Jeff Okudah in regards to that.
So, as we all know, football especially is one of the sports that's kind of least affected by this whole coronavirus. It's more MLB and NBA especially.
NHL too.
And NHL too that are being affected by coronavirus. NFL, they're not playing until like the end of August, early September. So they have some time and wiggle room. So their NFL's new league year was continued. They didn't really change that, push that back. And Roger Goodell just recently said that the NFL draft is not going to change dates. It's still going to be held at the end of April. But one thing that will obviously be canceled is the live event that they have every year. And this year is supposed to be in Las Vegas and have this whole ship and boat that they drive the players onto the stage, whatever. That's all canceled. But one thing that has remained consistent in everyone's mock draft is Ohio State having Chase Young and Jeff Okudah in their top 5. Chase Young obviously solidified number 2 overall behind Joe Burrow, who's another former Buckeye. But Jeff Okudah, who we've seen go from anywhere from number 3 to 4 to even maybe 5, but mainly 3 and 4, he's kind of been consistent there too, either going to the Detroit Lions or the New York Giants. So Ohio State's still going to be well represented in this year's draft, even though it's going to look completely different.
Yeah, I think the lowest I've seen Okudah is 6, with the Chargers trading up to take Tua, and then the Lions getting him at 6. So, but even then, there's a pass.
And then on top of that, something to talk about is the other guys besides Jeff Okudah and Chase Young. So you have J.K. Dobbins, who's projected to go either late first round, early second round. And then to some people's surprise, you have Damon Arnett, who's pretty much been a lock in everyone's second round mock drafts. And Nick Harrison, who's in everyone's second round mock draft. Damon Arnett, I can't stress enough that year of him coming back has been so pivotal in his NFL draft stock, and that kind of goes to show why he appreciates Jeff Hafley so much. We saw a picture of Jeff Okudah and Damon Arnett going to Boston College to go visit Jeff Hafley, and it was funny because in the beginning of the year when everyone was asking, what's your relationship like? Jeff Okudah was like, I didn't really know who he was. His pedigree, he was coming from the 49ers, and they didn't really have a good secondary. So there's a lot of doubt. And Jeff Okudah said something funny about how there's a short 5'7" white guy who's going to come teach me how to play corner. And they all started laughing about that. But now, look, Jeff Okudah continues to say that Jeff Hafley has been a huge impact in his life, and it's a huge reason why he is a lock for the top 5 pick, and Damon Arnett is a lock for a second-round draft pick in this year's draft.
Yeah, a lot of people are even saying Arnett's going to be one of the cornerbacks in this draft who's going to be ready to start immediately, just based on the amount of experience and reps he's had in college, whereas some of the other cornerbacks might be more of a project. So
I know this is super, super late now, but I still find it super hilarious how at the NFL scouting combine, when Jeff Okudah was up at the podium, that reporter said, so Jeff, what do you have to say about those people who say that because you've had a lot of sloppy plays in this season? He goes, what plays? He's like, what do you mean by that? He's like, well, you've just been kind of sloppy on certain techniques and things like that. He's like, well, I've had 0 pass interferences and 0 holdings in my career or whatever at Ohio State. Go watch the tape. And I was dying because that reporter just he just sounded like somebody who was so misinformed and just clearly didn't watch Ohio State football at all.
That guy got fired. And
yeah, he got fired.
He did get fired because he came out and doubled down on that because he was getting dragged on social media. But it also I kind of assumed when I heard that it was some dude that was trolling. I thought it was a troll or something because it didn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah.
It
didn't make any sense. How could you be that assertive?
There's nothing.
Yeah, how could you be that assertive?
I mean, even you can normally find some.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
He was claiming it was because he was claiming it happened on plays where calls weren't made and should have been made. But even then, say hypothetically, if Jeff Okudah was making all of these mistakes, odds are one of them is going to be caught by a referee if he's making all of these pass interferences and holdings. The referees are going to catch some of them at least.
What was the funniest part about the whole double downing on his original take was the fact that this guy was on Twitter saying I have the clips and I'll show you those clips. And he never once actually showed anyone a clip of Jeff
Well,
Okuda.
he got fired after he said that. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, he dug his heels in a little too hard.
Yeah. Like, you could have just said, I made a
won't
mistake.
Be any
I wasn't
of us.
Yep. Definitely not.
Yeah.
It couldn't be me.
Question though, this is kind of a way I guess we can kind of finish this off. With the departure of, we talked about the departure of J.K. Dobbins and how he's going to be replaced. And I kind of want to talk about the departure of Chase Young and Jeff Okuda. And who do you guys think are going to be the guys that fans can look forward to see who's going to replace those guys? Because obviously it's going to be hard to replace a guy like Chase Young and Jeff Okuda, who are arguably the best defensive end and corner to come out of Ohio State. But who are some of the guys that you guys think that are going to be replacing them?
Well, for Chase Young, Zach Harrison's the main name that comes out to me.
Mine first.
Yeah. Even as a freshman, you could just see he's the guy going forward. He had some monster plays when he got a really decent amount of reps. So I think this year he'll be ready to take the step.
Took after Chase Young and decided to go with a single-digit jersey too. So who knows? We might be seeing him grow out his hair and get those dreadlocks going too.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on Tyreek Smith either.
Right.
Yeah, no.
He'll be there.
Defensive line is absolutely loaded. You could see a ton of people step up and make a lot of plays.
So Tyreek Smith and Zach
Baptiste will factor in, I imagine.
Friday too. So
Don't forget about old Coop now.
yeah, Jonathan Cooper's still there.
Don't forget about Coop, man.
That is true.
So the top three I would say to look forward to,
He'll be a solid-
if you agree, is Zach Harrison, Tyreek Smith, and Jonathan Cooper.
I mean, I'm pretty excited for Javonte John Baptiste, but sure, that's a good top three.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
And then Tyler Friday's pretty good too. So,
he's pretty good. I feel like he's more of a depth guy. Like he's good, but he's not going to be replacing Chase's production or anything. But we'll see. Those are good guys to look for. And then for Jeff Okuda,
I mean, Sean
I
Wade
personally have a favorite, and it's not Sean Wade.
Really.
Yeah. Well, Sean Wade, we already know what Sean Wade
Well, yeah,
is.
Sean Wade's coming back. He would have been a late first round pick, early
I feel like
second.
the guy who we can see, yes, 777 Banks.
Evan Banks.
So high on this guy. I don't know why, but I just feel like he has the talent to be the next corner, besides Sean Wade, to be a potential first or second round draft pick.
It's the number. The number does it for me.
Yeah.
The
So
number
he is
does.
wish for number 7. It's only fitting. But no, his production on the field is amazing. In the little snaps that he did get last year, and I just feel like he does have the true talent to be that solidified corner who replaces Jeff Okuda. And also Cameron Brown. Those are the two names we're going to be seeing a lot of.
Cam Brown would be my other, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to be starting. So as much as
– was the only other one I threw into the mix with those two, really, and we all know what's happening with him. So,
anyway.
yeah. Seven Banks and –
Yeah, 7 Banks, Cam Brown. No one else. No one else.
There's a lot of questions about secondary. Like, obviously, it's really hard to replace a guy like Jeff Okuda, but I feel like with the talent of 7 Banks.
even Jordan Fuller.
Yeah, Jordan Fuller at safety, too, is not going to be easy to replace.
Yeah, but Jordan Fuller, I think, did a great job of prepping his protege who's coming behind him. Josh
Proctor, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think Ohio State fans are pretty content with that position. I think they're okay because what we've seen from Josh Proctor and the snaps he's gotten, especially that hit he put on in the Big Ten championship game on the Wisconsin quarterback, like Ohio State fans know. And in last spring, I believe he was the one consistent guy who was constantly getting interceptions in training camp. So he has a knack for the ball. Just Damon Arnett compared him to Malik Hooker.
High praise.
Which is very, very high praise.
High praise.
The safety position, I think, is solidified, especially with the departure of a couple of guys. But
I mean, just in general, I think the addition of Kerry Combs coming back to be the defensive back coach and defensive coordinator just helps the development of those guys so much.
not only the development, the recruiting now. So now they've already got 3 guys in the secondary who've committed in the next year's class. So
yeah, and he wasn't even able to meet in person with a lot of them. So Crazy.
Like I said when it happened, I think Kerry Combs coming on locks in Ohio State as my national champion next year.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
LSU is not going to be the same team they were. They've lost so many people, not even just on the field, but with the coaching staff. So, I mean, they're still probably going to be a very good team, but I don't know if they're going to be like the undisputed best team in the country. And then, I mean, Clemson's still going to be there. Trevor Lawrence is still coming back for another year. So that I see is going to be the main team for Ohio State to beat. But if Ohio State doesn't shoot themselves in the foot like they kind of did in the Fiesta Bowl, I think they can pull it out and meet head-to-head again. We'll see. There's still a lot to be answered for heading into the season for this Ohio State team with running back position, with the secondary, even with who the receivers that step up to take the place of KJ Hill, Benjamin Victor, and Austin Mack. That's another thing that'll be interesting to see. Like who aside from Chris
Sermon
Olave,
helps too.
Yeah, who aside from Chris Olave is going to be the main guys that Justin Fields goes to?
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson, yeah.
Freshman class is going to be ridiculous.
Garrett Wilson's going to be a star next year, man.
Yeah.
Listen, this may be a hot take, but he could just leapfrog Chris Olave in production next year. I don't know if it'll actually happen, but he's talented enough to where that can happen.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. Justin
They
Fields and
have
Chris
similar
Olave.
skill sets to me.
Yeah. The main thing that I think, the main reason I think Olave will still have more touches is just because throughout the entire season, you saw that Fields and Olave had really good chemistry. That was like unmatched by anyone else on the team.
Olave like never came off of the field.
Yeah, like I felt like every game Olave. I think there was only like one game where like Olave didn't get a catch. So
Yeah,
I don't know. One thing I do want to bring up, since we kind of glossed over this before we end the podcast, taking us back to basketball, but we covered DJ Carton and Seth Townsend coming in, but we do have to address the fact that Alonzo Gaffney is also no longer going to be with the program. So
the famous recruiting class for Ohio State has quickly diminished.
Quickly crumbled.
Yeah.
Melting.
But a good sign for Ohio State fans is Liddell did go ahead and tweet out that he is not going anywhere. So you're keeping.
Did you really say that like as a dig to the other guys?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, once Carton's transfer announcement kind of happened, I was like, okay, I do kind of get it, given everything that's been happening with him. But Gaffney was a complete shock to me. Like, I
wasn't shocked by that just because all the weird stuff that happened at the end of the season with Chris Holtmann saying that he was ill, but then he wasn't ill, but he wasn't available to play.
Yeah,
but he couldn't comment any further. At that point, I was like, something weird's going on.
It was weird to me just because the last game that I saw him play, I mean, not play, but that I saw him at, he was cheering on the sidelines, clapping up and down, like super happy, and then all of a sudden he's gone.
Yeah, I still
on the bench for the last few games. So
yeah, I don't know.
There was some stuff behind the scenes too about like people saying that he had thought he was going to come in and be a star right away, and he didn't want to sit bench, and I think that's mainly what led to the transfer. It seems.
Excited
I
to see
mean, yeah, but before like everything like happened with everything falling apart and the March Madness being canceled, you're going to have people like Caleb Weston and Andre Weston going to be gone. Next year would have been prime for people like DJ Carton and Alonzo Gaffney to step up and kind of take the reins.
Part of me, after seeing the season that Caleb Weston had this year, a part of me feels like I don't know if he's actually going to leave.
I mean, had March Madness proceeded as planned, I think he would have
He's
gone.
a round 2 pick, maybe a round 2 pick. I don't actually think he has a career in the NBA right now.
Right now, I think he might come back just if he has the extra year of like I think he might come back, especially if Andre has another year of eligibility.
We all know in college basketball, it takes one phenomenal year for your draft.
Of course, could just do what Gaffney did and play overseas.
Wait, Gaffney's going overseas?
He's not transferring. Well, he said he's pursuing professional opportunities. I don't know what else that means.
Whoa.
Okay, then.
Andy, what do you
You
think?
do you,
That's not what he
Gavin.
said.
I don't
What?
remember. So much has happened.
Gaffney's not transferring.
Right,
He's
right.
leaving professional. Yeah.
You're saying he's not going to be a top 5 pick in the draft?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to be the number 1 pick. We all know Danny Hummer's getting that spot. So,
Danny.
good old Danny Hummer, legend.
No, but honestly, though, Gaffney, I think Gaffney would have had a hard time getting playing time next year anyway because of Stewing and Towns, who are both already like proven commodities pretty much.
Right.
Al Young's coming back. AJ Liddell's coming back.
So yeah, like who is he going to play?
Oh, even Arons.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think if he was such a high profile recruit, if he was really like improving over his freshman year and thought that, he had the skills and the capability, then I don't think it's too outside for him to think that he could be a starter or get significant playing time in his sophomore year. We've seen it happen with several other players. So, but I guess that wasn't going to be the case, and that's why he's gone.
Yep.
So,
Real quick, Griffin. Sam's been texting me, and we now know we learned today who the next set of sports editors is.
Really? Is it
Um,
who we thought?
Is it the 2?
is who we thought it would be. In the order we thought it would.
yeah.
They know, so we can congratulate them after this. But I thought you'd like to know that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we already know, and Khalid and I already know who the new sports director and assistant sports director are going to be.
Who's going to be taking over the best damn pot in the land?
Yeah, the people are going to be taking on the best in final. I think we got a pretty good class of recruits coming in, to put it that way.
Let's get 1,000 likes on this video, and we'll have them on next episode.
Yeah, assuming there is a next episode. I think there might be stuff we can still talk about, even though sports aren't happening. I don't know. We can cobble together 30 minutes. Maybe we'll do a mock draft. Who knows? You want to see that? Comment below. But I think that's all.
Possibly too long, so.
Yeah, I think that's all I had to talk about. Unless any of you guys have anything you want to add.
No, we covered everything.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sticking with us for another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land. We'll be back in the future over Zoom, and stay safe during the coronavirus quarantine, and have a great day. Thanks for watching. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.